Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And today I'm going to be talking about a few videos on different subjects. The first video I'm going to be talking about is a presentation by a Dr. B. Sydney Smith, who I've never heard of before. But I'm going to talk about this video and link it below. It's excellent. I can't remember who sent me the link, but great video. It was a presentation for the Greens at VA Tech, Virginia Tech. Basically, his premise is that industrial civilization needs to collapse as soon as possible to stave off runaway greenhouse effect. Basically, like the only way to save the planet or save people would be if industrial civilization collapsed like really, really soon. Obviously, there are problems in this scenario, obviously, not taking into account global dimming, not taking into account nuclear reactors melting down, not taking into account nuclear war breaking out, and not taking into account the fact that millions, if not billions, of people will die from hunger and starvation and violence, lots and lots of violence. So, premise aside, this is a great talk. So I'm going to just play a little bit of the video. Here.
So that's kind of our metaphor here. When the deleveraging of the financial economy hits and the final collapse ensues, those of us who've thought about it are going to breathe a huge sigh of relief. It's like the Jenga stack coming down. And the sooner it happens, the greater will be our celebration. Because what if it didn't happen? In a talk I gave here last year, I gave a detailed summary of our impact on the planet. And in the years since, we've learned things that make that summary seem almost optimistic compared to what I'd be telling you if I gave the same talk today. The ecosystem is collapsing. Fisheries, insects, land vertebrates, all these populations are declining at a rapidly accelerating rate. Populations of vertebrates have declined 60% on average since 1970. I mean, that's instantaneous in evolutionary terms. Insect populations have declined by at least 45%. Again, not a steady rate of loss, but accelerating. Pollinators going extinct. Without a functioning ecosystem, there's no physical basis for any level of human civilization. Mineral and water resources are being depleted, again, at an increasing rate. Water stress will soon become extreme in the most populated parts of the world. A third of agricultural land around the world is acutely degraded by industrialized agriculture. At this rate, all of it will be lost before the end of the century. Essential industrial metals will become unavailable, and fossil fuels inaccessible in meaningful quantities at any price. All of which would spell the end of civilization even without climate change. But the science is now crystal clear. We've got at best 10 years to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, or we'll see at least 4 degrees centigrade of additional warming, possibly as soon as 2040, certainly by 2080, with no means whatever to bring the climate back into equilibrium.
All right. I'm going to stop it right there and just talk a little more about this video. I mean, I could play the whole thing. It's a really good talk. So he's correct that we have, well, I don't know about the timeline about having 10 years to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. Many people would argue that we've already passed the point of any kind of reclamation of our species or the planet or life on Earth or at least any humans being around to see what's going to be happening in the near future. And again, his premise is that industrial civilization collapses, and so that's how we get ourselves off fossil fuel. Um, you know, science and the certitude that or the certainty that we're past the point of no return, and that we're going to see it, 2, 3, 4 C rise in temperatures in the next 5 to 10 years. That being aside, and I'm fully aware that that is a possibility, and even a probability. That being aside, I don't think that we're going to wean ourselves. We're not going to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, and we're not going to be able to save the planet, period, unless we do it in a controlled fashion. I just don't think. And I don't know how much of it we can control, but we're going to have to control something, because once you put global dimming into the mix, or once you put melting down nuclear reactors into the mix, then all bets are off. Then we're gone. We're toast. We're done. So if we have are going to have any kind of a chance, we have to control the degrowth process. We have to control the weaning process. And I was just listening to an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speech today, and as short-sighted as it is, the Green New Deal does offer something called like a federal jobs guarantee, which is basically, you know, basically guaranteeing people their incomes while they train for other jobs or get into other jobs or just quit their jobs. I actually think this is a brilliant idea. We have plenty of money because, if we just say in the first, year or 2 years of a Green New Deal that we slash the military budget in half, even just in half, not the whole thing, which I'm totally for the whole thing. But, we need to maintain nuclear warheads and whatnot or disassemble nuclear warheads, more like it. But let's just say keeping the military, some kind of status quo, you could slash the military budget in half and put that towards a federal jobs guarantee and towards, retooling the economy towards massively retooling the economy towards a green economy. And you can also repatriate all the tax haven money that all the corporations have offshore, right? There's billions and billions, if not trillions of dollars that major corporations, Apple, Microsoft, Walmart, etc., they all have these tax havens offshore, and they've got billions of dollars in these tax havens. If you can get that money and bring it on back, you'd have billions, if not trillions of dollars in order to start fighting climate change, in order to start, you can put people to work decommissioning nuclear plants right away, post haste. You can put people to work, taking over farmland from industrialized farmland to organic farmland. You can you can train people. One thing that this guy does say is that, in order to unwind civilization, you'd have to have a mass migration out of cities into farms. Yes, you would have to have that. And so if you had some kind of Green New Deal that took that into account, you had, again, this federal jobs guarantee, and you guaranteed people their incomes, or just guaranteeing people that they're just not going to starve to death right away. Maybe that, that guarantee can come in the form of food deliveries or whatever. Again, I know this is, all of this is conjecture and far-fetched, but if this were to be put in place, we could start to wean ourselves off fossil fuels and unwind the economy. Will we be able to do it in time? That is the $1 trillion question. And I just really wanted to read very quickly something. And I'm sorry, darn it. Somewhere in here is my email account with this. rapid decommissioning of nuclear power sites. So Jeff sent me this. Apparently, it's possible to ramp up the dismantling of dangerous nuclear power plants. That's the good news. This is what legislators and leadership needs to understand and act on, given the urgency of rapid climate and environmental instability. Before infrastructure support makes it impossible to decommission nuclear power sites and secure the radioactive fuel rods to avoid multiple core breaches or meltdowns that will contaminate the biosphere. So, apparently, there is some new technology. Speedy reactor cleanups may carry both risks and reward. Companies specializing in the handling of radioactive material are buying retired U.S. nuclear reactors from utilities and are promising to clean them up and demolish them in dramatically less time than usual, 8 years, instead of 60 in some cases. That's exactly what we need, right? So if we have, if we have a decade or, less than 2 decades to make some major changes, we don't have 60 years to spend dismantling our nuclear reactor. Turning nuclear plants over to outside companies and decommissioning them on such a fast track represents a completely new approach in the United States, never before carried to completion in this country. It involves new technology as well. Supporters say the accelerated method can get rid of a hazard more quickly and return the land to productive use sooner. Regulators, activists, and others question whether the rapid tables are safe and whether the companies have the expertise, the financial means to do the job. We were up in arms that it was 60 years. Janet Taro, head of the environmental group New Jersey Clean Water Action, said of the initial plans for decommissioning the Oyster Creek plant, and then we hear it's going to be expedited to 8 years. It's great to get it over with, but are there corners that are going to be cut? Holtec International, which in the past year has been buying up several retired or soon-to-be retired nuclear plants, has designed a cask it says can accept spent fuel after only 2 years of cooling. The company would be able to keep anything left over in each fund after the plant's cleanup, et cetera, et cetera. While there are risks in transferring spent fuel too quickly, experts also note there are dangers. While the fuel rods are sitting in the pools, including the chances of a catastrophic fire or leak resulting from natural disaster, terrorist attack, or other event. So this is some pretty good news. I'm just going to, if there is any hope, this is probably one of the main, spokes in the wheel of trying to do what we need to do to unwind civilization or degrow civilization or, to take down, our level of consumption and fossil fuel use in order to bring ourselves more in alignment with the biosphere. We're going to have to decommission nuclear plants. We're going to have to deal with the global dimming problem. I have no answer for that, and I don't know if anybody else does. But, if there's a possibility, if there's a way to decommission nuclear power plants and disassemble nuclear weapons quickly, within a decade, that would be great. I'm going to link this article below. I'm going to link the video below. I'm going to cover 2 other videos very quickly. I have too many tabs open. So this is why Kamala Harris, just quickly going to some politics. This is why Kamala Harris is not a good candidate or even a dangerous candidate for president. I'm going to just play this quickly. This is a video from Secular Talk, but here's a snippet from her talking about social media.
We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility. If you profit off of hate, If you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
Yeah. And that's my face too, the face that Kyle Kulinski is making. So this actually has a lot to do with Russiagate. But this is a problem. Labeling, just being the ability to label anything as hate speech or misinformation. So basically anything that doesn't line up with the official story, or anything that the government or the corporations deem as dangerous to their interests, they can call that misinformation or hate speech. Or to go a step further, they can call that, Russian disinformation, or that somehow your mind is controlled by Russians. You're Russian backed or Putin backed. This is exactly why the Russiagate story is incredibly dangerous and incredibly stupid to propagate, because it gives the powers that be the ability to smear anybody as aligned with Russia, and also it takes away the agency people have in order to, people have the ability to see through the lies of corporate media and see through the lies that the government is trying to put upon us, right? And if you smear anybody that's giving information that's contrary to the official opinion, you can call that Russian propaganda, or you could say that somehow somebody is backed by Putin. And all of those things are super dangerous. We already live in an Orwellian state where 2 + 2 = 5 if the news media, if the corporate news says so, and if you say it equals 2 + 2 = 4, you're a conspiracy theorist, or you're backed by Russia. I'm going to link this video. It's pretty interesting and downright scary that Kamala Harris is saying stuff like this. Lastly, this is a video from Graham Elwood. This is a great little video vignette kind of he covers this video that's Bernie versus Biden in the crime bill, the 1994 crime bill. And it shows the two opposing thought processes going, behind this, opposed and for. The sad part about this is that Bernie actually voted for that crime bill as well, because there were other things in it that he supported. I don't know if he was forced to vote for the crime bill because he supported these things. It's like they put two conflicting things in the bill. Like there was this crime bill that was really terrible and punitive, and then they put other things like Violence Against Women Act, which is actually a good thing, right? You can't say that you didn't vote for the Violence Against Women Act, right? Because then you would be a jerk. So Bernie basically voted for this bill because there were other things in there that were good, right? And that's the gotcha in these bills that they run through the Senate. But anyways, I'm going to just play a couple clips, just kind of delineating, Biden from Bernie. And where is this? Here we go.
And Madam President, we have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. We have an obligation.
You don't care because you're a rich, privileged white guy. You could have been giving people schools and jobs and all this stuff 20, 30 years ago. You've been in public office since the 70s, Joe. You could have been putting them to work on a Green New Deal back in the 90s when they first really started talking about climate change. They called it global warming back then.
There could have been a Green New Deal because Al Gore was vice president and knew all about that. And there's actually, I think I covered last year, I don't know how long ago it was, there was an article talking about cooperation between countries around climate change. And it was actually cooperation between intelligence agencies and scientific agencies, and it was cooperation between China, Russia, and the United States. And Al Gore was involved, and it was actually this kind of détente, scientific détente, where they all shared information around climate change and what they were going to do about it. And so had there not been the political pushback by the corporations and by the think tanks and by the right wing factions, we could have had something like a Green New Deal in the 90s. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Anyway, so here's Bernie. Bernie, where are you? Let me find the spot that I wanted to find. Here we go.
What we're discussing now is an issue where some of our friends are saying we're not getting tough enough on the criminals. But my friends, we have the highest percentage of people in America in jail per capita of any industrialized nation on earth. We've beaten South Africa. We've beaten the Soviet Union. What do we have to do? Put half the country behind bars?
Yeah. And that could very well be the scenario that they're trying to go for. If we, what a profitable country we would be if half the people were in private prisons, and all the other people were working in the prisons or in the military or in the police force. We could all just be one big Gestapo concentration camp. Wouldn't that be lovely? Anyways, I just wanted to bring you this. It's very interesting. If you watch this video, he goes through it. I can't actually find the video that he's showing. I've been trying to scour through YouTube and find the original video he's showing. If somebody can find that for me, I would be so appreciative, because I would love to link that video in some other places. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.